And he was leadership development coach at ISB and also been the manager of clinical operations for various healthcare organizations like Johnson and Johnson. Currently, his company Scientific Solutions provides innovation management services to different healthcare organizations and bring their domain expertise to provide them innovative solutions. Now, I would request Mr. J.K. Sir, CEO of a technology business incubator, to say a few words, and also Mr. Ashish Sahani sir, faculty in charge of TBI, to introduce our guest so that we can carry on further. Sir,
Thank
over to
you.
you now.
Thank you, Siddharth. And once again, heartiest welcome to Santosh for this IT Ropar Milkis. And it's our privilege to have you for this talk. And I'm sure that entrepreneur community and particularly those startups or incubators who are working on the healthcare segment will definitely take a benefit from your talk and your expertise. I will request Dr. Shisani, faculty in charge, IIT Ropar TBI, to say few words for Santosh. Dr. Sani.
Yes, I and Santosh have kind of known, met each other on LinkedIn from a long time. When I did that medtech workshop at that time, he was on mind, and later last year we were planning to have this year medtech conference, but then that got cancelled, and then this pandemic, and also then when I became the faculty in charge, then he was in touch that if there is any help from my side, then maybe. So then I thought that maybe one of the ways in which we can start some engagement is by knowing each other better so that we can arrange some talk. And then there are a lot of our own startups who are in health tech space and they require mentorship in certain directions. So if they are interested, then we can also have Santosh in some of our evaluation as well as mentorship. So this would be a good start. And Santosh is a visiting faculty at ISB, so that way he brings a lot of ISB touch to him as well as a lot of business side understanding, because we as engineers we may be very good at technology, but we don't know how to sell the technology. So that's what we need business people for. Okay, so over to you, Santosh. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ashish, Jagdeep, and Siddharth for that kind introduction. Perfect. All right. Okay, so let's get started. And before I dive into my my presentation, I must say, Ashish, we need more engineers than business people. So it's good that we have more engineers here from IIT. So good afternoon, everyone. Before I begin, I must tell you that in Mumbai we have been facing electricity issues. So in case something happens during the presentation, I would need to switch my network. So you need to bear with me for that inconvenience. So I have a few slides to drive our discussion, should take about 30 minutes or so, and then I will leave the rest of the time for discussion. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right. Okay. What we will try to do is to keep the questions at the end. If in case you want to ask questions in between, I would request you to put it into the chat box on the right hand side of your Google Meet. That will also make sure that you don't forget your questions. So as Siddharth kindly introduced me, I'm a healthcare consultant. I work primarily in the pharma devices, mHealth area, and my focus is on idea validation, outcomes research, implementation, and project management. Most of these things, once again, within the healthcare domain, specifically also working on the health tech areas, and that's why I think I'm here today on Ashish's invitation. I also end up doing a few domain mentoring and training sessions, which is what we are doing today. I spent some time at IIIT Hyderabad mentoring the startups there who were part of the deep tech accelerator in IIIT Hyderabad. And then as Ashish mentioned, I also end up doing some leadership coaching. I teach at ISB. Something that I've started doing for last 2 years or so is also I end up writing whatever I understand out of the field. So I send out fortnightly newsletters through Medium. I do a monthly deep dive into areas that I research on and I'm working on, which helps me with my own ongoing learning, and then also helps me share my knowledge with all of you. I'll be very happy to connect with all of you on these mediums. So what will we cover today? I will speak a little about why and how of healthcare innovation. In the why field, we will think about what is the current state and what are the challenges and needs that leaves open, and then spend more time on the how part. So how would we do the innovation? Why is it different than, say, for example, like innovation in other technology fields? So really thinking more on three major items: valuing your ideas, how do you think about taking your ideas to product journey, and then how do you sell your product. And then we will end today's session by thinking about some do's and don'ts, and then an open discussion. So this is something that I think all of us, whether we are from healthcare or not, are quite familiar with. All of us have had at least a small kind of healthcare issue with ourselves, with our family members, with friends. So typically what happens is that we get some kind of symptoms, we get ill, we find out who we can go for this kind of symptom, we go to that physician, doctor, we get diagnosed, the physician typically recommends treatment, and then we get on the treatment. Most of the times we recover, we get well, and we are done with this episode. Sometimes that might not happen, we get new symptoms, we continue to get the same symptoms, or this is a disease that doesn't go away with one treatment, so then the cycle continues. And then sometimes after recovery, we also get another new kind of disease, and then once again we enter into the cycle. So the journey itself looks quite simple. However, in reality, it is not. And because at each of these steps, you will see that there can be something that can go wrong. So to begin with, a lot of diseases do not wait for the symptoms to appear, right? So there are a lot of diseases which start showing their effects on body even before we know that there is a disease. So that becomes a problem itself. Similarly, a physician may not be able to diagnose what's wrong with us, or may end up doing a wrong diagnosis based on the symptoms we tell her. So that will become another problem as well. Based on a right or wrong diagnosis, the patient might receive a right or wrong treatment. Even in case the patient receives the right treatment, there might be a problem because the patient might not take the treatment on time, or has effects which are not desirable for the patient, so on and so forth. So as you can see, at each of these cases, there might be issues that are faced by the patient, by the physician, by the healthcare system overall. Some of these problems also deal with money. So some of these things might not be affordable for the patient, or might be too costly for a particular hospital to install, or for a particular government to introduce in the country. So all of these problems might have issues related with money. Another important factor is also quality of healthcare. So each of these problems might also deal with whether all of these things were done with the right quality in mind, or were done in a haphazard, messy manner, and because of which we did not get the desired impact. So why I'm bringing up this cycle is that this is where we will play most of the times when we are thinking about healthcare innovation. One or more of these steps will be touched upon by your idea, by your innovation. And that's why it's important to not only know that particular step, but what happens before that step and what happens after that step. So what we'll do is try to understand why this cyclical system plays an importance in the innovation world. And this is where we begin. So as you all know, we have had a lot of issues with healthcare globally and India. There are different kinds of diseases occurring at different rates. There are old ones like the infectious diseases, and then there are new ones like the non-communicable lifestyle kind of disorders. The whole prevention, treatment, cure is also a problem. Can we prevent diseases happening even before they show manifestation? Can we treat them with better cure, better treatment options? And then after treatment, do they reoccur, or can we cure them for lifetime? So that becomes another challenge, another area that we can think about. Healthcare expenditure has been a problem for many countries in the world, including India. Can the patients afford the treatment? Can the patients afford even getting diagnosed for a particular disease, so on and so forth? As I mentioned in my previous slide, healthcare quality is also an important parameter. If patients can afford a treatment, they most probably will receive good quality. But is that true? Do we go to a big hospital and we see that there are problems with the quality even in a big hospital? What do we do with that? So on and so forth. Healthcare equity becomes also an important parameter, which is quite connected with expenditure and quality. Are all sorts of patients in our society receiving similar kind of treatment options, similar kind of prevention options, similar kind of cure options? If not, then how can we fix them? And then, of course, on top of all these things, which also are, of course, India challenges, there are also specific challenges for India healthcare. We have one of the highest out-of-pocket spending by patients worldwide. So that means that we spend out of our pockets. We do not get subsidized treatment. We do not get subsidized medicines, so on and so forth, as compared to many other countries. So that's a specific challenge that's being worked on. There are also other challenges. For example, 80% of our medical devices get imported from outside of India. So that is another challenge which is very India specific. How can we fix that one? And then finally, of course, all of our minds are now boggled down with the pandemic thoughts. So how do we get out of something like this? What if something like this happens once again in future? Will we be better prepared? Will we be able to handle it better? So on and so forth. So as you can see, a lot of challenges, some of them new, some of them old, impacting globally, impacting in India, so on and so forth. As you must know from your technological backgrounds, technology has definitely opened new doors for some of these problems. So there is a computer in everyone's hand, as in a mobile, and of course, because of data getting really cheap, connectivity is also available at the touch of a button. Both of these factors have combined to make sure that also a lot of patient-generated data is available for healthcare companies, organizations, governments to analyze and see if they can use this data in a better fashion for betterment of healthcare systems. And finally, of course, there have been tremendous technological improvements in computing power. There are new things like GPUs, which help churn huge amounts of data in very short amount of time, which would not have been possible a few years back. So all of these have definitely opened new doors. Having said that, technology is also not just a cure-all kind of solution, right? Because there have been definitely hundreds and hundreds of startups which have tried introducing technology into healthcare, and they have failed, starting from even Google and Apple. And enough analysis has been done over the years of why this is happening. And I will touch upon some of these items during my talk today. So as you can see, a lot of people are really trying hard in the health tech world, what needs to be done, where it needs to be done. As you can see from this chart, there are multiple players involved, but also as you can see, they have not been able to get the traction that they might be able to based on the kind of things that they have been devising for in the health tech world. And we will see some of these examples later on today. How is the scene in India? The Indian scene is also very busy. Most of it, once again, related to technological solutions for issues that specifically are a problem for our patients. So ranging from telehealth, thinking about how the patient discovers a new doctor on new hospital, so kind of a search engine, doctor networking, so kind of polyclinic related ideas, and then tagging them all along, thinking about care management. Can we provide an end-to-end solution to issues that patients face without them hopping around different clinics, different OPDs, different specialists? So it's a very busy scene. So where do we find our own idea fitting into all these things is what we will also try to figure out today. So that's a bit about the background for what's happening in the healthcare world, what are the challenges and what are the needs. So what we will do today is take three ideas and visualize their journeys to market. So this will give you a feel of how we are doing this in real life, what kind of questions we should think about at each phase of these solutions getting developed, and what are the pitfalls that we should definitely look after so that we do not end up into the list of failures that I just showed you. Because we are facing the pandemic and everybody is very excited about also how to beat down COVID-19, we will take examples which are related to COVID-19. Based on your own reading, you must see that there is a lot of chatter about many of such examples in media, in healthcare news, in research articles, so on and so forth. So this will also give you a taste of how I think about some of these ideas, some of these new inventions that come in newspapers, and what kind of magnifying lens I apply to them when I'm thinking about some of these ideas when they come to market. So the first solution idea that I would think about is a patient education information platform. We see a multiple examples of these on Google app, on iOS platform, etc., etc. So we'll try to look at this platform. We'll also think about a novel oxygen sensor, which claims to sense oxygen through a mobile app. Let's see if that's possible and how do we evaluate this idea. And then finally, once again, a very popular idea of using AI/ML driven technology for accurately detecting COVID through a CT scan. All of these examples you must have seen in news media. So let's apply some critical thinking to these three and see how do they go from idea to product. But should we move on to that right away? Actually, no, this is one of the first important mistakes that happens when we think about ideas. So the problem with the previous step is to even think about defining the problem space. Do we really need this product in the market? What about the existing products? What about substitutes? How would the market work for such a new solution? How will the product flow? How will it reach the desired population, so on and so forth? We do not think about any of these when we think about our idea. We think that, hey, this is a good idea, let's start working on this right away. But no, what I definitely suggest, and I definitely spend a lot of time when I'm working with other startups, is really defining this problem space. Which market are we going to play into? What are the existing competitors that I need to think about? Will this product even find a footstep in the current market or not? So definitely do that kind of research before you even think about taking your idea forward even into the next step. For today's discussion, let's assume I have already done this exercise and I have already thought about this need that already exists for each of our three ideas. But as I said, this is something that itself is quite a long exercise, definitely not something that you should skip when you're thinking about your own ideas. So the first step typically when you come up with an idea is to kind of think more about the idea and then do what is termed as ideation and iteration. So what does that mean? So what you need to do is think about the problem space. So let's assume that there is, dearth of reliable information for COVID-19, and that's why you have thought about, building up this information platform through app, through website, so that patients get the right information at the right time. Now, based on this problem space, you need to think about which are the patients that you will go for. So some of those things can be done by a tool called customer journey mapping. So you really go to the customers, see how they are right now doing those steps that you envisage your product will be doing, and then map out those steps. See where your product will fit into them. See if there are spaces that are left out even after your product fits. What will make sense? Will it make sense to include those steps into your product even if you have not thought about them beforehand, so on and so forth. You can also use another tool which is called as pains and gains. In this, what you will try to do is to think about what are the current pains that the patient, that the consumer, that the user is facing with such an app, with such a sensor, with such a AI/ML detection tool. Are there gains that can be done through additional features, through additional new product ideas? So you will try to define, convert this problem space element into a primary idea using these tools. Based on these mapping exercises, what we will come to know is what will be the value proposition of this idea. And most of the times you will come up with something called as a minimum viable product. What is a minimum viable product? You will think about what are the minimum design features, what are the minimum technical requirements, and what are the minimum business requirements that your product can fulfill, so that you can at least start prototyping this product and then be ready with it in a short period of time. If you think about a final product which is really polished, which is really an end product, then that will take more time. So typically what you do is you come up with a minimum viable product, or it's called as MVP, and you think about beginning to work on this one in the beginning, so and then reiterate on that particular idea from design, tech, and business perspective. Now, one of the problems that happens with MVP kind of things that I've seen in especially tech world is they think that minimum viable product means doing the minimum in any of these three areas. So just design a good product, don't think about tech, don't think about business, and we are fine. But that's not how you need to do. So if you think about your product and it's able to kind of work on these four parameters. So let's say that it kind of resolves a function, it's reliable, it's usable, and it also contributes to some kind of emotional need for the user, then your MVP should not be the base of this pyramid, but it actually should be this. So it should try to resolve some kind of functional issues. It should be reliable. It should also be at least some sort of usable, and it should fulfill also some sort of emotional needs for the user. So really cutting across this whole pyramid and not doing a base a minimum product. So that minimum viable product doesn't mean just a minimum product. All right. So moving on from ideation, thinking about our own product. How do we do this on our own product? So really thinking about this information platform example, how are we going to these people and thinking about what kind of information do they need? Is really an app the best way to meet these objectives? Why is the app the best way to meet objectives? Why can't we create a website? Why can't we create an ebook? Why can't we create a physical book? So on and so forth. What are the other solutions? What are the other apps that exist in the market? How is their usage pattern? Are people engaged with this app over a period of time, or are they just using it for once or twice in the beginning and then they're forgetting that this app even exists? How will this platform, how will this app even make money? Will we charge users? Will we distribute it directly through the app store, or will we give it as a companion app for something else? So really, these are the kind of ideation questions you need to ask when you are thinking about your minimum viable product. Moving on from ideation to the next step comes validation. Now, for especially technology related people, validation is typically just one sort of validation, which is technical validation. So once you are done with that, once you are done with testing your code and thinking about some basic user testing, you're done. But in healthcare, validation can take many tiers, both internally and externally. So on top of the technical validation that you will typically see in tech products, you will also need to think about analytical validation. You will need to see clinical validation. You will need to see a lot of regulatory validation also. This slide itself, typically I cover in a full-fledged 3-hour, 5-hour course. So, it's totally beyond today's scope to dive more into validation. But let's keep in mind that validation for healthcare ideas is very crucial. It's a pivotal step. Validation can make or break your ideas. So this is something that's very important. So let's take some examples for the oxygen sensor and see what kind of validations will be needed for such a sensor. So technical validation, quite straightforward for many of you from technology backgrounds. Which hardware piece actually, what sensor will measure this oxygen? How will it measure this oxygen? How will we define what is it measuring, so on and so forth. When we move on to analytical validation, we will start thinking about how is this measurement of oxygen being recorded? How is it getting converted into a reading? How will we validate that conversion, so on and so forth. In clinical validation, then we will think about how does this new method of oxygen sensing also correlate with patients' other symptoms? What are the gold standard oxygen measurements currently in the market? How does our product deal with those gold standard oxygen measurements? Does it show up similar results? Does it show better results? Does it show worse results? So on and so forth. In the regulatory section, then do we need government approvals for these sensors? If we need, then what kind of conditions should we met, should we fulfill for such approvals? So as you can see, a lot of different kinds of connotations for the validation step when we consider the oxygen sensor. Moving on to the next step, so we have covered the design, we have covered the validation, and now we are thinking about the business side of it. And this is again something quite important. A lot of times we forget two major important points, and that's what I will cover today. So really, one of the first things that you need to think about in healthcare especially is who will pay for the product. As you know, in healthcare, the consumer, the user, the patient is at a disadvantage. The information asymmetry, so basically the information available for the patient with regards to the disease, with regards to diagnosis, with treatment comes from a single source, which is the physician. Many a times nowadays we are going on to websites and trying to check some of this information from second-hand sources, but still most of the times our healthcare decisions are driven by the doctor. So considering that pivotal point, which is quite different than other technology products, say for example, a phone, you do not need your store person to tell you which phone to buy, right? That is something that you will do your own research into. You will go to 100 different websites, you will review it, you will compare it with other phones, and then you will buy a phone. But that doesn't happen for, say for example, a treatment option. You do not purchase medicine by comparing it with other medicinal products and trying to figure out the features. Sometimes you will do some price comparisons, but that's all you can do right now. So really, who will pay the product, who will take that decision for the product's finance is something that's quite important to think about. Because of that, there might be different kinds of business models that we need to think about. Are we going to really think about B2C, so directly consumer-oriented products? Are we thinking about B2B, so kind of selling it to other businesses? Or are we thinking about B2B2C, so kind of thinking about going to other places where we will be able to attract consumers? So really thinking about this business model becomes also quite important. Who is the right customer to choose becomes very important. And then within this customer, do we need to think about also a customer segment that will be interested into our product is quite important as well. So that is where this idea about addressable market versus serviceable market versus obtainable market comes. So let's take an example. For an addressable market for an oxygen sensor, you can say that all patients who are worried right now about their oxygen levels is our addressable market. But do we think that all those people who are worried about their oxygen levels are going to buy a new sensor? Most probably no. So that becomes your first filter, and then you think about, okay, those people who are really careful and also have a paying capacity. So let's say people who are staying in cities will be our serviceable market. Now, will all people staying in the city who are careful about their oxygen levels will be our serviceable markets? No, because we will not be able to reach out to all of these people at one go. So then becomes your second filter, and then you start thinking about obtainable markets. So within this city level consumers who are really careful about oxygen, who will actually buy your product will lead to this thinking about obtainable market. So as you can see, you really need to think about the customer and then start segmenting those and really zeroing down into a very narrow focused area where you will really get good traction for your customers. On the similar sides, then you need to start thinking about what sources of funding are available for your product. Should you raise funds from outside, or should you self-fund these kind of initiatives? What kind of funds can you tap into? Are there government support available? Is there private funding available? Should you go for VC funding? And then for all of these different kinds of funding options, what are the conditions that are applied for each of these funds? What kind of giveaways they are expecting from you? Sometimes VC funds will expect you to give them equity. Sometimes government will ask you to make your product open source so that it can be sold without copyrights. so on and so forth. So you need to really think about not only just the sources of funding, but you also need to go into detail and see what are the conditions that apply for such funds before you tap into it. So let's go and think about some of these examples for our AI ML solution now. So some of these go-to-market questions for AI ML can be: who is the main beneficiary of the product? Is the main beneficiary the same as the payer for the product? So where will you place the product? Will you place this product because it is related to a CT scan into a radiology lab? But who will then pay for this product? The lab might not be interested in easy diagnosis. Easy diagnosis is in the physician's section. So will the physician pay for a lab to use your AIML product? So on and so forth. Who will pay for this product? Why will they pay for this product? And then as we started thinking about what is our TAM, what is our SAM, what is our SOM? So really your addressable market, your serviceable market, and your obtainable market is something that you need to think about. Once you have thought about some of these market definitions, also think whether they will remain static or whether they will expand because there will be more and more users that are interested in such things, or will they contract because your disease is more episodic and will go away after some time, so that your, even if right now your market is quite big, it might retract, it might reduce after some time when you are in the market. All of these criteria will help you think about your business side, your money part of your solution. Whew. All that is done. So now we have figured out all three of these major elements. Now can we go to the market? Actually, no, because there are more things to think about. Because we are working in healthcare, there are definitely a lot of complex interlinkages that you need to think about when you're thinking about your product. How will your product integrate with the existing pathway? Because some of these things have been done in the same way for last 20-25 years. Suddenly apply a new product, a new app, a new AI/ML solution. Will the market be very happy to adjust to their own pathway? No, you will need to introduce it. You will need to make it clear for everybody why you are introducing such a new step. What are the challenges? What do each of these pathway people get out of it, even if they are not paying? Do they need to do extra work? If they don't need to do extra work, will that be better for them? How would you reduce these adoption pains for some of these people? So on and so forth. So those are the things that you need to think about when you think about introducing your product to your new customers. What will be the product supply chain? Who will help you distribute this to the end customer? Should you start approaching them right away, or do you need to wait till you get your first iteration complete? Which partners then help you thinking about each of these steps even in beginning rather than at the end? Who will help you during ideation? Who will help you during validation? Who will help you during the go-to-market phases? So on and so forth. Each of these steps you will definitely require at least one partner to think about. Most of the cases you will need to at least work with some physicians to understand the domain. So why not start approaching them from ideation onwards, and then they can help you develop your product in a much better fashion. This is also quite different than typical technical innovations that I see in the market, because once again, you may not need some of these influences to work in straightforward technology innovations, but in healthcare innovations, because there are so many complex interlinkages, there are so many people involved, there are so many handoffs involved, you need to start thinking about these partnerships well in advance. So what does this look like also from oxygen sensor perspective? Once again, going back to our example, where is your product's best fit? Who is using similar products? How are they using it? What kind of technology they use when they're using those competitions? Where will you perform your product validation? Do you need a hospital setting for that? If yes, which hospital will allow you to do this validation? How will you manufacture your product for the validation step? Do you have a small manufacturing setup ready which can help you, say for example, produce only 50 such products in the beginning, so that then you can test and see if you need any changes? If not, then how will you set this up at a small scale? And then finally, what will the users do with the product results? Okay, I have a very good product that gives me a good oxygen reading, But what do I do with it? I still need to depend on the doctor. I still need to depend on the regular clinic-based consultation. Then what's the use of my oxygen sensing if my doctor is too busy to look at my oxygen sensing results every now and then? So I need to think about these aspects also when I'm thinking about my product. So what does success look like? Actually, I have three very good examples, not related to COVID, but which are related to these three examples that I told you about. So coming to the first one, an information platform. There is a company in the US called Omada. They actually took up the diabetes treatment guidelines, converted them into a personalized disease management software, and now are doing very well in the US when it comes to diabetes management. Cure AI is an Indian company led by Indian founders. Very impressive results from radiology AI ML solutions for TB, for chest X-ray. What they have also done really tremendously well is also from standardizing their product and working towards getting the validation step. They're actually one of the only companies in the radiology world globally which have produced really high throughput results and publish them into peer-reviewed journals. And finally, all of us know Apple Watch. What some of you might not know is Apple Watch has become also a sensor suite for biometrics on the go. They recently introduced also oxygen measurement capacity. What's interesting once again for Apple Watch is the time it took for them to validate the oxygen sensing capacity. But also what I was telling you in my previous slide, recently there was discussion about what will happen when everybody measures oxygen on the go, and there will be a lot of alerts because of course our oxygen levels will rise, they will fall based on a lot of other parameters not related to definitely serious health problems. Our hospitals, our clinics will be filled with people who are really anxious about their oxygen levels. They will say, hey, my oxygen is right now 93, what should I do? But our doctors are already dealing with a lot of other emergencies, and they might not have time to deal with these asymptomatic cases which show some changes in oxygen levels but may not mean anything from health perspective. So how do we deal with those things? So even Apple Watch is kind of still in that phase, but they have done also a very good job in validating their product and publishing the results in open source journals. All of these companies, all of their products, their journeys is something that you can go and search for on the internet. They are readily available for you to watch and learn from them. As I said, all of them have also published their results, their validations in peer-reviewed journals, and there is a lot to learn from each of them for all of us. All right, so moving towards the end of some of my thoughts, as I said throughout this session, having an idea is just the start of the journey. Paul Graham is a very famous investor, inventor. He also led Y Combinator, one of the biggest accelerator incubators in the world. And what he says is that it's very easy for outsiders to overestimate the value of their ideas and underestimate the difficulties of execution. So really, when you're thinking about a new idea, spend a lot of time thinking about why is execution harder than it seems to outsiders. You being a technology outsider, you bring a very fresh perspective for healthcare. But also think about why some of these challenges continue to remain for healthcare executives all over the world. Why have they not been able to fill them? What are the real challenges behind the scenes which are not apparent for all of us to see on the surface? So really dig deeper, dive deeper, and think about some of these more into detail. Don't think that just having a good idea is going to help you right away. And of course, there is a lot of work to be done. Which area should you focus on? And this is something that you should already, spend a lot of time thinking about, because I've seen that a lot of people jump onto shinier, sexier products, and they do not really have good traction even in the ideation phase. So really think about which area should you focus on. Do good market research. See what is the competition doing, and then proceed. Another question that I get asked by a lot of new people who want to enter into the market, and they ask, does it need to be digital? And the answer is, of course, no. As I mentioned in the earlier part of my session, some of our challenges in especially India are not typically digital. They are service oriented, they are manufacturing oriented. So if you are a good engineer, you think about manufacturing, you think about service-based delivery, and there are a lot of options which are typically not digital. One of the challenges that we face is most of our surgical devices come from abroad. Can you think about manufacturing them locally? There are a lot of government-initiated ideation and funding sessions for such ideas. So it definitely doesn't need to be digital. Definitely doesn't need to be AI/ML. AI/ML has become like a password for everybody to use. You just throw it like salt and pepper over everything, and everything looks good. But that doesn't need to be that way. Your product doesn't need to play into the AI/ML area. A lot of times startups also tell this to me directly, indirectly, that we have raised a lot of money with our current idea. So who are you to question us? Don't have this attitude. Everybody who is trying to work with you, partner with you, will have some kind of good thought behind giving you this advice. So take this advice. Doesn't need to mean that you are actually just going to work on everybody's advice, but listen to everybody, think about why they are talking about such things, and then see if some of those things can also be assimilated in your ideation journey, in your validation journey, in your go-to-market journey. So treat most of these questions that come up, most of these challenges come up with respect. Think about why are those challenges coming up, and then dwell more upon them. So, really a summary of some of these things, some do's and don'ts. So identify the right problem. I think I've done this enough through this presentation, but really don't think that every problem is a nail just because you have an idea of a hammer. So, you go on finding nails for your hammer. Do spend time in verifying problems. Definitely a big thing that all of you need to think about. Be focused. Don't try and do a lot of things in the first go. Definitely set a good clear path and how to go there, and then focus on doing just that. Don't get distracted. Build a financial runway. Don't automatically look for investor money. Definitely create a business plan, see what are your needs, and only then seek appropriate funding suggestions. No need to just keep behind business plans and money without thinking about the previous steps. Form and nurture partnerships. As I told, don't think you can do it alone. Strategically plan and invest in nurturing collaborations for domain, data, funding, influencing, all sorts of things. Understand the regulations early, especially in healthcare. Do not underestimate the role of regulations. This is a very important point. A lot of people do not think about regulations and then face challenges. Do engage with regulatory experts. Update your plans regularly based on the regulatory landscape changes, and then you will be more successful. Definitely focus on effectiveness. As I said, don't create another fancy digital app without any real-time impact. There are tons of them. If you go and search for health-related apps on Google Play, on iOS, you will see that there are like tens and thousands of these apps. So don't create another app unless you see there is a value into all of these things. Do think about real life effect, real life impact. Start producing that evidence early on. This evidence will not only help in your publications or showing it to people, but it will also attract investors, because of course you're showing in evidence of future results, and investors will be interested in something like this. QRAI actually ended up doing that. They raised their funds based on the publications that they did. So really think about this effectiveness quite early on. And finally, through all these things, especially in healthcare, it's important to continue to create trust. The patients, the physicians, the healthcare workers, governments, funds, all of these people should see that you're creating trust. You're doing this not only from business perspective, but also from doing something good in the market, trying to get something done really well. So create that trust from all these steps. And as I've said also throughout this presentation, Try to integrate early. Do not create new silos. Think about the healthcare as an interlinked system and not just one-step solution. And once again, you will be successful as you move forward. I think that was my last slide. I'm going to leave now for discussions this stage. So let's start with questions, thoughts.
Thank you. Sir, there are a few questions. I think we will carry for 15 minutes for the discussion. Then we can wind up the session. So I request all the participants to ask any question if they have in the chat box. So the first question is from Mr. Abhishek Shetty. He asked, "What is a problem space? Can you share an example?" I think he's talking about the first slide, which you tell about the problem space.
Correct, yes. So that's a good question, and I don't have a slide right now, but really what we need to think about when we think about problem space is not just think about one problem. Think about all the issues that surround that problem. Let's take this example of oxygen sensor, right? As I was talking about, why does the patient need to think about oxygen sensing? What are the precursors to this? So what is happening before? What is happening after? Who is helping with this process right now? How is the patient able to get this product from the market? If there is no product in the market, what are the other things that the patient is doing in absence of this? So really think about this, from all angles rather than just thinking about the problem. So that is a problem space.
Yes, conduct an effective market research before going about thinking about a solution. And so the
Correct.
second question, yes, and Mrs. Pankuri Saxena asked the second question, that is, what new projects have come up during this pandemic season? And could you please help us with some innovative ideas or products in the healthcare and safety domain?
Sure. So I won't definitely be able to give you ideas right away. That is something that you should spend time on. But some of the new projects that as I already told you, one of the very important things that came up was thinking about new ventilator design. So as most of you must have seen in the news media, ventilation support, oxygen support was a very important step for managing critical COVID patients. So that is something that a lot of people focused on. A lot of technological experts spent time in adopting existing oxygen support mechanisms and upgrading them for better ventilator support in clinics. So that is something that is called as pivoting the existing business. A lot of people went into telehealth because patients were not able to visit hospitals. So these kind of ideas started coming up from COVID. Once again, based on the problem space, people were not able to go to the doctor. They were having challenges managing oxygen. There was no time for some of these things to pan out very quickly. So people started modifying the existing products. So that is how the problem space was linked with the idea.
Okay, sir. Kashish Jain asked the third question. That is, according to you, what is the scope of data science in healthcare? Like what we can do in coming future to bring innovative solutions related to data science in healthcare? What is its scope?
So, data science in healthcare itself is quite a large aspect to cover. As I was, saying in one of my slides, because the way we are consuming data, we are generating data because of the computers in our hand, with regards to the connectivity that we have, and also the way we are handling the data itself has changed. There is tremendous scope for data science in healthcare, right from, once again, touching upon all those spaces in the cycle. So prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and cure, all of these things are being touched by data science in healthcare. Maybe in a future session together with IIT Roper, I can cover more in detail.
Yes, sir. Surely we would love to have topic on this present session on this in future. Mr. Sanatan Fonda asked the question: an idea generator with sales skills and a salesperson with an idea, who has better success rate according to you?
That's a googly question by Sanatan. I would feel that both of these people would have good success rate if they are really good at doing these things. things. I think that sales skills are almost as important as generating ideas. So you need both of these people in a business. So both of them will have, I think, good success rates if they are good at doing some of these things.
Yes, so like we need a balance of both to go out successfully.
Absolutely. Yes.
Shruti asked, given the high entry barriers, how can we get into this space, like in medical space?
Yeah, so although the barriers are high, Shruti, I think there is a lot to be done. As I showed, there are still a lot of challenges that are unanswered. There are simple needs which require, solutions out of the box. I keep talking about this issue with the surgical devices. I was really surprised when I was speaking with some people in the industry, and they told me that the needles that are used to suture wounds, so even those come from outside of India. Now, it's a simple needle, right? So why do we need people from outside India to manufacture and we import them? So, although the entry barriers seem high, there are also a lot of spaces which are left open for us to play into. All you need to do is to think about the space, go deeper, and see what are the challenges, and then you will be able to definitely find that space that you're talking about.
Okay, definitely. Mr. Ravisha asked another question. Students in innovation and tech is still a nascent space. How can incubators and organizations create an environment and support such enthusiasts?
That's a good question, and I will also ask Ashish and Jagdeep for their comments. But from my perspective, what we are doing today is definitely a good start. Understanding the domain, understanding what are the challenges, understanding what are the needs, understanding what can be done in some of these situations is definitely a first step. That is why incubators, accelerators exist. And then once they have ignited these thought processes, they will also then help you create these partnerships, maybe also source funding for you, guide you to the right funding partners, so on and so forth. So that is what I think IT Roper must be doing already. We did it at IIIT Hyderabad. I've seen it happening in other IITs, so on and so forth. So that is how this space will definitely go further, and then we will create that environment that Abhishek you're asking
about. So I think there is no more questions. Participants have asked all the questions which they had doubt about. So, sir, I extend my heartfelt gratitude towards you for taking out time and guiding the students to like how to think about going on bringing innovative solution in this this space, which is quite a difficult one because we are students from non-engineering backgrounds. And now I also ask Mr. Dr. Ashish Sahani to come and say some few words and conclude the session. Sir, over to you now.
Yeah, so thank you, Santosh, for giving this, a lot of perspectives on, basically healthcare business. And so there are healthcare as such, I consider as a little different type of business, as people told that there is a lot of entry barriers. And even though I am also from medical device research, but if you look at, say, technologies which are, say, Uber or Lyft, which are unicorns, which have become on their own, I don't think we have any healthcare unicorns in India yet. Do you know of anyone? Any?
India-based, there were actually two unicorns. One of them was NetMeds, and there was another one, I forget the name. But yes, they entered the unicorn space only in 2020.
Yeah, so those are primarily, I think, in supplies. So if we look at big players in like medtech space, or which make big medical devices, Johnson & Johnson, GE, Stryker, Abbott, all of them are here, but they are primarily multinational companies who do it. And what happens is people, even to enter this space, you require a lot of deep pockets. And second is a huge regulatory barrier, especially in India, because many things are still not clear. So everything when a new player may start making something, but after a while of development, they might come with against these barriers, and which might stop them. So in that sense, I would also like to ask one question to you, like if suppose a tech guy is there who can develop a web-based or say app-based solution for something, say non-medical field versus he has a good idea in medtech field. So, in terms of return on investment of his time, and do you think that he should go for a medtech thing?
That's another Google question for sure.
Because that's what I now looking at, the scenario here. Unless you are established player or you are being backed by those established players, it's really on a return on investment scale, it seems like you investing on something else is better.
In a way, I agree that the road to market is really long. So as compared to something in tech, pretty straightforward. It's definitely a challenging pathway. But what I have seen working in the field and also outside of the industry, so I'm not talking about big organizations which have, as you said, deep pockets. There are some people who have been able to do really good impact within a short period of time, with good sense of money, but more thinking about how to bring this value.
Right.
And what I've seen is the returns that you get are of course high, but also there is a lot of internal satisfaction, right? So from that perspective, I don't think there is any measure for that satisfaction.
Right.
So that is something that a lot
another issue here in India, I believe, is the interaction between engineers and doctors, because the ecosystem themselves are very different. Like the doctors do not even understand the different degrees in engineering. While engineering guys don't understand the different degrees, they will probably not be able to differentiate between an MBBS and a MD or a DM guy. So similar thing happens on their case. So that's what I think. There is a lot of communication gap and IT different priorities in terms of what an engineer has versus a medical person.
I absolutely agree, and I think some of these things were like people living on two different planets altogether.
Yeah.
That they did not want to even talk to each other. Right? If you're a technology guy, then I won't listen to you, and if you're a physician, then I won't talk to you. So those kind of things. I think some of these things are changing. Definitely, a lot of people are talking to each other. People like you, incubators, are creating these spaces so that people are able to talk to each other and so on and so forth. So it's changing, maybe not to to the extent that we want it to be, but hopefully more changes coming.
Okay, so thanks, Santosh, and hopefully everybody benefited a lot. And we will, if anybody wants to get in touch with Santosh regarding any mentorship, then they can contact me or Mr. Chetty, and then we can make that contact.
Yeah, I'll be very happy to continue, guiding some of these thoughts. If there are any questions from today's discussion itself, but also outside of it that got unanswered somehow, then we'll be happy to take those. As I said, I write a lot of these things. So if you're really interested in this field, then you can also look at my writing, and that will help you also on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.